What's up, y'all? My name is Justin Solis, and I am an enterprise account executive with 9 years of experience. I currently carry a $1.4 million quota, and today I'm here to talk to you about how to be more effective with your LinkedIn messaging and write messages that actually get responses. As every good seller knows, you want to use as many different channels of outreach as you possibly can. Great multi-threading always includes, at the very least, phone calls, emails, and social outreach. LinkedIn is the best way to reach out to your prospects in the majority of industries, but it can be difficult to get in touch with them and break through the noise. So today I'm going to give you 6 different tips and tricks that you can leverage to help make your LinkedIn messaging more effective. So the first tip, when connecting with a prospect and adding a note, obviously that note needs to be really short. If you're familiar with LinkedIn, you know that there is a character limit of 300 characters when sending that initial outreach. So make sure that not only is it short, but also you want to make sure that you lead with pain. A big mistake that I see a lot of sellers making is they use the opportunity to message on LinkedIn to sell a feature or to highlight their product. When there are so many different products being pitched to a prospect at any given time, you need to stand out by focusing on a pain that you believe that they're experiencing. If you know your persona as well, you should have some hypothesis around what pain it is that they're experiencing that your problem solves, and you want to lead with that. The other piece is, with that note, you never want to ask for time. In fact, with all of your initial messaging, it's always better just to gauge interest and see if they'd be willing to connect. So let me show you an example of a message that I send. So in my industry, I normally am dealing with 3 different types of personas. Normally it's either finance, talent, or people operations. So I actually use Magical to create short templated messages that are actually customized to each of these different types of personas. So for example, let's say I want to message Nadia here. Nadia is on the people team at Deal, and it looks like we're not connected yet, but we have a bunch of mutual connections. I'm going to go ahead and hit connect. I'm going to add a note. And then I've already created a template with Magical. So I'm going to put my backslash, use my character here. And then I'm going to use my people LinkedIn message. I'm going to plug in Nadia's name into the custom field here. And now I've added a note that I can use to send. And if you look at the structure, it leads with pain. So instead of saying what it is that PAVE does, I open up with people leaders often tell us that they struggle with managing, educating, and planning competitions. This is something that I know from working with people leaders that's top of mind for them when it comes to challenges. Then I'm going to give a short blurb on the value prop I offer. PAVE gives employees a comprehensive understanding of their total comp, crucial in the ongoing talent war. Once again, hearkening back to potential pain, potential fear with the talent war, etc. And then instead of asking for time, I'm just going to say love to connect and learn how you're thinking about this. And then I go ahead and hit send. So Magical is a really powerful tool to be able to leverage when it comes to actually sending those initial notes. So once again, make sure that you keep it short and sweet. It has to be within that character limit. And the other piece is make sure that you lead with pain. Don't talk about features. My second tip is try to add value before you ask for time. So as I mentioned before, a lot of sellers, what they'll generally do is they'll just send a big pitch slap, a giant paragraph once somebody's connected with them. And that paragraph is all about talking about their product, asking for time, trying to sell. One of my favorite sales influencers always says, you have to make deposits before you can make withdrawals. If you go to a bank and you open up an account with $0, you can't then hit the ATM and pull cash out. You have to make deposits, let it generate interest, and then you can go about making withdrawals. It's the same thing when you're dealing with people and building rapport through LinkedIn. So one thing that I'll often do is I will send a message to that person after we connect that is a webinar from another company or an article from a third party that might be interesting to them. I might even send them a case study from another product that's not competitive with my own that I think they might find useful. This may seem counterintuitive, but what you're actually doing is building rapport and building trust by giving them helpful information without making any attempt to sell. I call this warming the prospect up. It's always a good idea to try to warm the prospect up by adding value, by sending webinars, case studies, or articles that they might find interesting. This is going to build trust, and then once it garners a response, or you've sent 1 or 2 messages like this and you've seen a red receipt, then you can go in and try to pitch your product. When it comes time to come in and pitch your product, one of the things that I highly recommend is leveraging voice memos. Not a lot of people are using voice memos today. People do often get creative by sending video messaging, but it's kind of an oversaturated thing. And the video message always has that preview. What's unique about voice memos on LinkedIn is all the prospect sees is a small blue bar. Their curiosity will inevitably be piqued, and they have a much higher likelihood of engaging with that content and listening to what you have to say. However, make sure that this message isn't too long. I recommend doing about 15 to 20-second voice memos as a way to follow up when you're ready to make your ask after you've made some deposits and added value for your prospect to build rapport. With any message that you send, whether it is through LinkedIn or through email, keeping it short and succinct is absolutely key. Always make sure that your messages take less than 30 seconds to read. Try to use simple language. We're talking 5th grade reading level here. The more complex it is, the less likely it is to be read, the more difficult it is to comprehend. And always try to ensure that the message is at least somewhat tailored to them. Talking about a pain that you know that they experience in their position, tying your product back to something that's relevant to them in their role. Another thing that I always like to do when I'm messaging on LinkedIn is try to reference any other conversations I may have had with other people within that prospect's company. Sometimes I might make a call and I will talk to someone for 30 seconds. They might tell me, hey, buzz off. However, what I do know is their name and I have spoken with them before. So I might send a LinkedIn message where I'll say, hey, Nadia, recently reached out to Jeff. He told me that he wasn't the right person to speak with, but mentioned that you might be. Would you be opposed to connecting? So merely by name dropping someone in their company, it's going to make them feel as though A, you're familiar with them, and B, that you might have had some conversations that have brought value. And it sort of is alluding to the fact that you've spoken with someone that recommended talking with them. All of these things are going to increase the likelihood that that prospect is actually going to respond to that message. So anytime that you're making cold calls or you're sending emails, even if you get a response that's negative, you can leverage that prospect who negatively responded to name drop them to the prospect that you're trying to reach. The last thing I'll say is always respond quickly and timely to your messages. I know it's tough when you're running an inbox and then you're also focused on all the different tasks that you might have in your sales role, but make sure that you periodically check your LinkedIn and try to respond as quickly as possible. If you've never heard of the concept of speed to lead, the more quickly you respond to someone, the more quickly you engage with someone, the much higher likelihood that you're going to be able to book a meeting and bring them into your pipeline and obviously eventually close them and get some money in your pocket. So what I always recommend is periodically checking your LinkedIn, messaging them back right away. And if you want to save some time, as opposed to writing completely tailored messages every single time, you can actually use Magical's AI response to craft a response for you. So let's go into my own inbox here. Here, this guy, Robert Heath, is reaching out to me. He's actually trying to sell me something. So using Magical's AI, I can simply type in, let Robert know that I appreciate his message, but I'm not interested. And now, as you can see, Magical crafted a response that looks like it was written by a human being, and I can send this off to Robert and we're gonna be all good. So to recap, always lead with pain, especially in your initial messages. You don't wanna pitch slap, you don't wanna feature sell. Those things aren't gonna grab their attention, and that's what all of your competitors are doing. So make sure that you understand your persona and that you lead with the pain that you think would be relevant to them. That's the best chance you have of them engaging with that messaging. Tip number 2, always add value before you make an ask for time. Send them something that is completely unrelated to the product that you're selling. Try webinars, try case studies from other products that are not competitive to your own, or articles are always a good idea too. Tip number 3, never pitch slap. Always keep your messages short and succinct, use simple language, and pay attention to the read time to increase the likelihood that they will engage with your written messaging. Tip number 4, leverage any conversation that you had with anyone else within the organization to name drop that person to your prospect to increase the likelihood of them feeling as though you're familiar with the account or that you've been given some sort of explicit instruction to actually connect with that person. And finally, always respond quickly. As I mentioned, great way to help you do both the messaging at scale as well as responding quickly is using templates in Magical or using Magical's AI response. Give these tips a try. Let me know if you find success in the comments. Happy hunting.